Good afternoon, guys. This Monday, it is the day after the night before. I'm here with Paul Kenward outside Vitality, and it feels like we're reporting at a funeral almost, doesn't it, Paul?
It's a bit sombre over here, yeah. It's very quiet, eerily quiet. I mean, there are a couple of players' cars going in and out. We saw Sam Surridge come in, and we've just seen a nice car go away. We didn't quite see who was in it, but Eddie's here somewhere. His car's in this car parking space. Jeff Mostyn's isn't. You know, there's all sorts of things going through your head. You know, is today the day that Eddie decides with the board what the next stage is, whether he's part of it? I don't know. It's a lot of questions. That's where we are now, I think.
And we're reading into everything that we see on social media. You said you saw a social media post from Steve Fletcher, and it was almost like a goodbye. Well, it felt like one. And if you read into things in a certain way, you can interpret them how you want. But judging on the fact that if Eddie was to go, then all of his coaching mates would probably go as well. You're sort of reading into other people's posts as well now. Yeah,
it's got to that stage now, I think, where we'd almost resigned ourselves to the relegation weeks ago. You know, the Southampton game probably was the turning point for me, and that was, you know, I know that everybody said have hope, and you know, the last game of the season, but to expect two teams to go and lose and then us to win, I mean, it almost happened, but it wasn't to be. But yeah, in terms of new manager, if we were to get a new manager, I mean, they would definitely want their own coaching staff, and they want their own stamp on the team, the squad. So it would mean a complete rebuild of everything, and I don't know if we've got time to do it well.
Well, that's the thing. What was it? The weekend of September the 11th and 12th. And you know, that's a quick turnaround for someone new. And you'd think, like Eddie, who's quite conscious, he's got a very high moral compass. You'd think maybe he'd give it another season. I think, you know, to walk now would leave us in the lurch. You know, given the fact that someone has to learn the players, how they play, where they play, learn their styles. If we were to bring in someone new, do you think it would be someone connected with the club, or do you think it would be someone completely different?
I'd hope it would be somebody connected to the club. I mean, Mark Mosley springs to mind because of his links with the club, how well he's doing at the moment at Weymouth, but he's still relatively new to management. So, you know, it's very difficult. I wouldn't want Harry back, and you know, there's a number of ex-managers that you think, no, you know, once was enough. Eddie's kind of unique in that fact, where you'd have him back again if he left now. You'd have him back in a couple of seasons if things weren't going so well. But I don't know if Eddie wants to go, and that's we're all coming to our own sort of, our brains are going in overdrive, and we're coming out with things that we don't know the answer to. And I'm hoping that Eddie's in there right now, talking to the board either via video call or something like that, or Max certainly, and saying, I want to stay, I want to rebuild. Obviously I've only got a year left of my contract, and it may be that he starts the transition phase, you know, and maybe leaves in a year's time when fans are allowed to be here to say goodbye to him, because I think that would hurt him the most. If he was to go outside now, you know, and leave us, he'd want to be able to say thank you to the fans directly, I think, and I don't think he can do that at the moment.
I think that Eddie Howe, I've said this so many times, he's consumed in his own, you know, bubble that he's created, and I think even within that, you know, footballing sphere that he's in, I think he has these moments of solace, you could call it, just by, you know, looking at the fans and engaging with the fans, and it's clear that he misses them, you know, as much as anyone. I really hope that he doesn't go, of course, but if we are to take the car parking spots by, you know, gospel, Eddie Howe is there, Jason Tindall's not. There are a number of other people that we saw, as Paul said, you know, Sam Surridge, and I think, you know, the only reason he would be here is maybe he's doing a bit of like fitness perhaps in the suite, or he's having chats with, you know, the people that matter to discuss the future. And there are a number of players whose you know, careers we don't know where they're going to go. Not least Callum Wilson, rumoured $100,000 a week, a player that, you know, will probably go, but sadly due to the position we're in, and Mr. Tiggs was saying it on the chat the other night, we're not going to get the value that we once were going to get, were we?
No, I think Championship players generally do go for a lot less than Premier League players. I mean, even though the quality might still be Premier League quality, the fact that we're down there means that the buying club have a huge pull over the player, and the player could do a Ryan Fraser and decide that actually I don't want to be here anymore, I don't want the challenge in the Championship. Callum will want to try and fight for an England place. He's certainly not going to get one at the moment, but he could do next season if he plays well at another club in the Premier League. But do players in the Championship get looked for England spots? Not really. Maybe Wales and Scotland internationals, maybe they get more chance from the Championship, but certainly the Premier League is where you have to be for England, and I think Callum will look that way, unfortunately, or fortunately. I mean, £100,000 a week, that's a lot of money to be spending, and even if he had a 50% clause, £50,000 a week in the Championship is way over the odds, really. So there's going to be a lot of discussions, a lot of players that are going to have to either renegotiate their contract or go. I don't know what clauses were in the contracts for relegation. You'd hope that we would have had the foresight to put that in there, and the sensible option. But yeah, it's going to be a big overhaul this summer. I could see 5 to 10 players going, and I think it's going to be interesting and exciting. The rebuild with Kilkenny and some of the other youth players coming through, I can't see it as a bad thing. I think some of the players that have paid a lot of money have actually not performed for us at all this season. So.
And it's not just the playing staff. There's a lot of admin staff, people in the ticket office, those in the shop, people, behind the scenes, who will be let go and they will be made redundant. And that's the fact of getting relegated from the Premier League to the Championship. Yeah. And I'm sure that Eddie Howe will shoulder a lot of that responsibility. Do you think Max has got the patience to do another year? Because there was a 5-year plan to get in the Premier League. We did it in 2. Does that give Eddie 3 years credit, maybe, or does it not quite work like that?
I think Max will have been amazed at the rise, like we were, to get to the Premier League as quickly as we did. I think the overriding emotion for Max at the moment will probably be that of sadness. He'll be a bit upset that it's gone the way it has, but I don't think he'll blame Eddie for it. I genuinely don't think that he will be as hard on Eddie as Eddie maybe thinks he will be. Everything we've heard from Eddie says, we're going to wait and see what the owner wants to do, and I think that's more down to the training ground, personally. I think if the training ground doesn't happen, I think Eddie might say, I need that training ground. Yeah. We need to bring the youth players through now that we're not in the Premier League anymore. So I think that could be the crux of it. It might just be as simple as training ground or us.
So, Eddie might be, I know that Eddie's got headaches himself, but he might be passing on the headaches to the people that need to make the financial decisions and say, look, are we going to plough more money into this thing or not? And we could see Eddie walk away. We could see a big commitment of Eddie staying for another 3-4 years. We don't know.
No, that is the problem. I mean, and like you pointed on, it's the backroom staff, isn't it, that really are the collateral damage in all this, and I'm really, really sad for them, because they've stuck by the club through. A lot of them have been here from League 2 and on, and you just think, well, let's hope that we don't have to get rid of too many of them. And it's, especially when you're looking at players that have not performed this season on a lot of money, it seems unfair that in a week they could pay for 3, 4, maybe 5 members of staff for a year in 1 week. And it's upsetting and it's unfortunate. It is business, obviously. It's a business. We try and run it as a business, but at the same time, it's a community and a family. Like Steve Fletcher said on Instagram, it feels like a family, and it would be a sad thing to lose some of your family.
Last Premier League match we saw here was Chelsea, 2-2. And then I was seeing you thinking, we could get out of it. Obviously didn't expect all this COVID stuff. And, when it did happen, the next time I thought I'd be seeing you in the flash pool would be to celebrate our survival, but it wasn't to be. But you are one of those fans that has been here since the very beginning, and you'll stick with the club throughout. So there's no doubt about that. But there might be some fans who do shift on to other clubs, supporting other clubs, aren't there? And that's the nature of it, sadly.
Yeah, I think it's the younger fans that might do that rather than the older fans. I can't see many sort of fans in their late teens upwards changing club, because your club is your club. You choose it, you stick by it. But I think some of the younger kids who bought shirts couldn't get tickets to the games, they'll not be able to watch us on the telly as much, and they won't be able to follow us because they won't be able to get into the ground because we haven't got a bigger ground, which is devastating in itself. We couldn't improve upon the capacity here. Can't get more people through the doors. Even the Championship, I think, will be fairly highly subscribed for tickets. It was last time, but then we were on the rise. Then I don't know. I can't predict really, but I think it's disappointing that we haven't got a way of keeping the younger fans hooked.
Yeah.
For me, that's a devastating thing for the club and for Eddie. I think when asked about what legacy he leaves, he left a pregnant pause, a very long one, and said, actually that's a really tough question, because what have we got apart from memories of beating some of the biggest clubs in the world?
Yeah.
That's it, really.
Well, Paul, nice to speak to you. I'll do a bit of an elbow bump. That's what it's got to be these days.
Yeah.
We're going to have more fallout over the next forthcoming weeks, I'm sure, on the podcast. So do subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you give this video a thumbs up too. Have the cherries.